This video contains spoilers. It has plot, character, and situational spoilers up until Volume 11. Cadell. We all know him. If you've read the novels of Volume 7 at least. If not, what are you even doing here? He's the Scythe of the Central Dominion, the personal enforcer to Agrona, the Dragon Slayer, and one of the most hyped characters in the series when it comes to fights. Today we'll be diving into just how strong Cadell is, using the novel, direct quotes from the author, and what we can gather from them. Cadell Vritra is the first antagonistic force we see in the series. Discounting the random bandits, Cadell poking his head into Sylvia's cave is the first look of the wider world of threats Arthur will face. Later on, his role is expanded in the plot to be a key scythe for Alacria, being a one-man force in the invasion of Dicathan. Cadell has been placed in a few fights that are considered the best in the series by many readers, such as the fight in the Victoriad and the end of Volume 7. However, he's also shown as an influential figure in more political situations, such as Volume 9's Scythe meetings. Cadell, before becoming a scythe near the start of the series, was Agrona's personal enforcer. This is a position no other character has gotten close to having with Agrona. Even Cecilia he keeps at arm's reach in case she breaks away from him or does something. When he was named a scythe, this wasn't an upgrade or a title he had wanted for ages like most would think, but it was a downgrade in his position. Could be due to him failing to capture Sylvia alive and recover Sylvie successfully, but Agrona still mentions him fondly later, even in Book 11. Overall, that's most of what we get out of Cadell in the series. Despite his position in the war and general Alacrian life, he's rarely mentioned and is frankly underutilized as a character, especially considering his range of abilities. While his character plot may not be that compelling when compared to other villains and even fan works involving him, with him seemingly going from a battle-loving guy who wants to stretch his arms in battle within Volume 7, shown by him smiling when he gets to be a bit excessive, and even complimenting Arthur's usage of mana and proficiency in it, to the stereotypical racist, Vritra-blooded guy in 9, constantly insulting Art, calling him a lesser, and his tricks being a mockery to the Asura. The power he displays in Volume 9 and 7 nonetheless make him an interesting character due to his overwhelming strength, even against other top tiers of TBATE. Cadell is able to utilize a large amount of the Vritra or Decay arts. He uses Soulfire, Voidwind, Blood Iron, and some seemingly unique to him alone. These are the Decay/Vritra equivalents of Fire, Wind, and Earth respectively. Soulfire seems to be his most proficient affinity. He uses that element the most from Volume 7 to 9. Soulfire is essentially just a stronger fire which can be used to shoot cones of destructive force or consume on smaller levels, such as pushing through the veins of a person as we see with Virion and Byron. He uses Soulfire for a majority of his attacks in the early fights, able to make cones of destructive force that wipe away entire armies. His regeneration using Soulfire is a major asset as well, healing every wound he has ever been dealt, before we get to destruction of course. This allowed him to take hits that would cripple or kill an ordinary fighter and keep going afterwards with no issues. His control over Soulfire is truly exceptional, being able to slow its spread or erase it from inside his opponents at will. He was also able to use it to drown out Arthur's etheric flames in Phase 3 during Book 7. Blood Iron is also used by Cadell, but mostly is just paired with his other elements for mass attacks, like Decay Hurricane. Blood Iron is the Earth Decay art that seems to form from shadows in many circumstances, but may not always follow that rule. It can be used to make constructs, or even tools such as swords or shields, along with the usual spikes we see in the series. He uses it to form these constructs, like shields, spikes, and even his own sword. Nico did something similar, and his Blood Iron was able to redirect lightning to it, and Cadell is much stronger than Nico. Voidwind isn't used quite as much in his base form, but is used in attacks such as his Voidwind Lance and in assisting other attacks. Voidwind is a decay-based wind that consumes mana and eats through it rather easily. It seems to be a counter to most normal mana arts, as shown by Kagiso's usage of it against Adan in the Victoriad. Going back into Cadell's usage of it, his Voidwind Lance was able to shift and meld so it couldn't be destroyed or touched by Arthur's attacks, even when utilizing Aether. The Voidwind Lance defense also showed the raw power to be able to break through and destroy the area of the Jinn armor it hit. It could also be made into different projectile and missile-like attacks. But, as if all this wasn't impressive enough already, he has the ability to fuse the elements together and make a brand new ability. In this ability, he fused Soulfire and Voidwind to meld into the atmosphere itself and become incorporeal. He has insane and precise control over this as well, in the castle fight melding only his neck, completely bypassing a blow to it. In another fused attack, though to be fair this isn't quite the same as it's just using the elements in combination, he used Blood Iron based attacks, with Soulfire coating it and Voidwind pushing it along to reach a massive and devastating attack, speed, and potency, easily breaking through the shieldings at the Victoriad that are made to protect the onlookers from battles between scythes and retainers. And this was only his first form. But before we move on to that, let's look at his defense and speed as well. It's not to be discounted either. Looking purely at his defense, not worrying about his healing factor and all, in Volume 7, he not only took but fully tanked a full force hit from a Phase 3 Arthur in the chest and didn't flinch or show any signs of damage. On the speed side of things, he was able to dodge a point-blank explosion from Dawn's Ballad, which started at his neck, and react fully to an attack started in Static Void, a time-stopping move. He also outsped Sylvie, a dragon, to an insane degree, being able to get to the fight miles away, just as Sylvie had been able to send the message to Art telepathically, which is near instant communication. When pushed to his extreme, Cadell even has a second form. If you weren't already convinced he was a boss, then this should do it. His fight literally has stages and forms. Also, I'm a bit upset there's no Phase 2 Cadell art. Can you guys get on that, please, fan artist? In this form, he looks skinnier and lankier than before, his limbs looking like obsidian and coated in shadow and soulfire, his horns growing to double the size of before. This form allows him to push beyond anything we've seen before and produce attacks and elements at a rate and speed unmatched by any others. He formed Blood Iron constructs and Voidwind attacks at a rate not seen by other foes, and as always, his Soulfire is awesome. I'm pretty confident in saying that Cadell is the best Soulfire user ever seen in the series. In this form, his shadow-covered self would be able to produce a majority of the attacks directly from his own body, and the ones that were formed in the arena were able to form in fractions of a second. He even formed a 30-foot spike of Blood Iron basically instantly. The mana reserves he shows in this fight is also so much more impressive than all of the other fighters we see that aren't, things like the Legacy, Arthur, or full Asura. In the Victoriad, he's constantly spamming attacks and finishing moves, all while healing and becoming intangible whenever he wishes. Not only that, but he was able to tire out Regis completely with only a small portion of the fight, and have enough mana left over by the end to push away destruction, even if it was only for a couple of seconds. The amount of mana that would take is absurd. Even Asura wouldn't be able to do that for long, especially after a long drawn out fight like that. Destruction is an attack that consumes and destroys anything and everything that it touches, pretty much negating defense entirely. And even with all of that, Cadell found somewhat of a counter to it, until Arthur gets Realm Heart that is, that could be used by someone with much more mana to try and resist destruction for a longer period of time, and maybe even use that time as a opportunity to escape completely. When we compare his mana reserves to another big hitter such as Chul, only a few of his large finishing moves cost him pretty much his entire reserves. Though granted Chul has his own set of issues and underlying conditions that cause this partially, this is a problem Cadell just simply doesn't have. His intelligence in battle is also something that needs to be recognized. While it may not be something that a lot associate Cadell with, it's nonetheless something that's truly there. He showed a lot of battle IQ in his fight during Volume 9, being able to force Arthur, even if he was a bit rattled, on the back foot for a majority of the fight and dodge all of the destruction attacks from Regis while still letting out a stream of attacks. When he was hit by destruction, as mentioned previously, he was even able to figure out somewhat of a counter to it, if a bit by brute force, which could be used by a higher power if they ever encounter destruction, like Cecilia, or a clan leader level Asura like Kezis, Mordain, or Lord Aklaya. His abilities are the closest that we get that could be considered a truly perfected Vritra mage, and a nearly quadra elemental one at that. There's a reason why he was chosen as the personal enforcer for Agrona, and I believe this clearly shows why. After all of this, I had to ask myself, could Cadell be the strongest in the series? With some obvious restrictions, of course, but of the characters in his lesser/Lessuran league, what would the contenders even be? Discounting full Asura, Aether users, and the Legacy for obvious reasons, who even stands up to him? So, I did something you should absolutely never do. I looked at the TBATE Reddit, and whoa boy, do people have their opinions. Using some of the most common trends from there and the Discord, I've compiled a list of characters most commonly thought to be stronger than Cadell with these outlines. Characters like Tassi/Taco, though they are commonly thought that Cadell might be in contention with them, won't be included due to them being full Asura. I will go through each of these characters along with their powers and break down each of them along with if they truly match up to Cadell's level of power. Starting with a pick that's not as common as it used to be anymore, but has a few small holdouts, Dragoth Vritra. When Dragoth was first introduced, people instantly jumped and thought he was the strongest of the Scythes due to his cool name, buff appearance, and charismatic demeanor. That's the fast and simple reason for why this scythe is here. As the series has gone on, he's gradually become less and less favored for his strength, and his power has been shown to be less and less significant when compared to other scythes. Now, strength-wise, he's about on par with Micah. Now, a majority of people, despite their original opinions, place him as the weakest of the scythes, not considering Nico, due to single elemental affinity, blood iron, lack of significant healing factor in comparison to the other scythes, and overall just kind of midness. Now, this is a more interesting one, but contrary to common belief, this isn't what would happen. Admittedly, Seris herself is one of the smartest characters in the series as a whole. She used her brain, smarts, and prep time to defeat a full Asura, and even break out the binds on her runes placed by Agrona. However, her strength isn't necessarily why she's as widely regarded by the series. She is really strong, don't get me wrong, but her strength is somewhat reliant on her thinking. Her abilities when fighting people on the same level or greater normally involve dodging and wearing them down. Her set of abilities lend themselves really well to this. Voidwind for dodging and draining bits of mana, Soulfire for healing any damage she takes, and Pure Mana but of the decay variety, something seemingly unique to her. She uses this not only to form constructs that she can combine with other elements like her whip, shield, but she can also use it to drain and nullify mana arts that touch it. She also made that remote detonatable bomb that one time, but don't worry about it. These abilities work really well when planned alongside other situations or technologies, but in a pure battle against Cadell, with his established insanity of a mana pool, I can't help but feel this comes up short. Could she beat Cadell given prep time? Yeah, definitely. But in a pure fight, Cadell would be able to outlast and overpower her, leading to her defeat. As much as we mean prep time Seris, it truly is a massive thing to have. She is easily the strongest of the scythes outside of Cadell. I understand why this is here. The form is cool. He was so powerful and stuff. Of course he could beat Cadell if it was just him. But no. Sorry, no. Cadell used a single element when encountering him, and only for a few small token attacks. Nico is the one he truly fought. Nico. Someone who is the weakest of the scythes. So weak that the scythes say their title was meant less ever since Nico was given it. He would just be a gnat for Cadell to swat at best. Phase 3 Arthur is just a little stronger than Nico. And let's not forget, when Nico was being consumed by that etheric imbued flames in that fight, Cadell just drowned them out with his Soulfire. Phase 3 Art's abilities aren't even all that impressive if we look at stuff later in the series. He of course had the normal Mana Arthur and Quadra Elemental abilities, but beyond that he used a Proto Godstep, etheric boosted flames, and made a pocket dimension, which pretty much just cost him his life. Pretty much everybody we've had this discussion with has agreed that with his abilities and skill set, this places him at low scythe, peaking at around Dragoth level at the most. Cadell barely participated in the fight, used a single element, and didn't even step in unless Nico got a bit tired from it. This isn't the makings of a fight that Cadell would lose. Perhata is a newer character. once stated to be really strong. In fact, Lyra, Cadell's retainer, says that he had a note of fear when mentioning her. How could I refute this obvious showing of her superiority? Well, let's compare them. Perhata similarly uses 3 elements, but with a difference. She uses Soulfire, Blood Iron, but instead of Void Wind, has Decay, Lightning. These are all really solid elements, and she has good proficiency in each, even being able to make convincing clones of steel plates with her Blood Iron. But let's think logically about the situation surrounding the two. Perhata is the leader of a Wraith squad, showing the authority to command multiple even, but she's built for teamwork in defeating a large threat with teammates. Cadell is built to work alone. How do I explain the fear statement then? Easy. Politics. We know that a Wraith squad would be too much for Cadell to handle, and Perhata has the influence and power to lead and push many of them. Of course, Cadell would keep himself out of messing with that when it wouldn't be him versus Perhata, but him versus the Wraiths as a whole. Also, he was a personal enforcer to Agrona while Perhata wasn't. Chul is one many see as a shoo-in to beat Cadell. He's a half Osira, a phoenix at that, and has shown immense physical strength. He even participates in battles along 3rd layer Arthur, but Chul has one major weakness that is easily exploitable by certain people: his lack of reserves. After only a bit of fighting and attacks, Chul is spent. Fiessa, who is much weaker than Cadell is, was able to exhaust Chul enough where even a direct hit didn't even kill Dragoth, someone not even retainer level. In the fight against the Wraiths, he was able to kill a single Wraith and in the process lose an arm, even when using his very impressive weapon, Sun Crusher. To beat Chul, all Cadell would have to do is use his atmospheric meld and outlast him and his meager reserves before sweeping in for the free kill. Chul is strong enough to threaten Cadell, but his weaknesses are something so great that it just can't be ignored. Cadell takes this one as his abilities and just feats in general hard counter Chul. All the others I didn't see as important enough to have their own sections, but let's do a lightning round. The other Wraiths. Some believe the Wraiths as a whole, like as an organization, are above Cadell level individually. This isn't true, and Turtle himself states that they're mid-Scythe level individually, and this is easily corroborated by the story. Think Dragoth to Melsri level. This goes for the people like Richmal, Blaze, Ifiok, Valeska, Ulrich, Varg, Renzi, Sethan, and Raced. The Lances. Micah is about on par with Dragoth. No way she touches Cadell, even though her things like Singularity and other attacks and defenses are impressive. Byron is around Melsri level in power, below Cadell by a wide margin, but that spear is a massive threat. Should he master it, he could very well stand a chance against Cadell due to its immense hacks. Vere is unknown in power, but from all we've seen, we have no reason to think she's near Cadell yet. She's probably high Scythe or so, but not near him yet. Otherwise, why would a simple reclaiming mission for territory take her so long to get Alak reinforces out? Nico. Yeah, someone said Nico was stronger than Cadell once. No need for elaboration on this one. It's not happening, not even with his cool new magic staff. Going over his abilities, feats, and specific matchups, I believe it's clear that he is the peak of the Lessers and Lessurans we know of and see within the series. Whether a potential integration mage will surpass, we'll have to see. But for all shown, this is the conclusion I was able to reach. Now with this, that's everything. If I didn't include something or someone you think I should have, let me know. If there's anything you disagree with, let me know. And if there's anything to improve, let me know. After all of this, I hope I was able to show you the light of the Cadell path. I also hope this helps to quell some of the debates surrounding Cadell. I've experienced multiple firsthand, and many of these points were from ones I've had myself. All in all, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and with this, I think we can say Cadell is truly the peak. This is Pokey from the Aether Chamber. I hope you've enjoyed.